So I've got a long history with Lightroom where I kept all my photos in it for years and I used it as my hub or my home base, my catalog, my digital asset manager, DAM, whatever you want to call it. I had a long history with Lightroom. And then a few years ago, I just kind of got away from editing in Lightroom because I felt like other apps were just way past it in terms of its editing capability. Now, Lightroom's done a great job in the last few years of really catching up and in some cases exceeding what you can do in some other apps. And so about 8 months ago, I made a video, which I'll link to right there, outlining why I'm back using Lightroom for edits. I was not using it for catalog, but I've now decided I've come full circle and I've already put all my photos back into Lightroom as a catalog or DAM, Digital Asset Manager. And that's my new home or hub or home base, whatever you want to call it. That's where I start all my edits in my true full workflow. And there's 5 major reasons why this has happened. I'm going to outline those in this video. The first one, of course, and here's Lightroom. The first one, of course, is it's an industry standard. It's a common language. Everybody speaks it, and I think that's a good thing. It ensures future development. It ensures a commitment to the platform. It's just a massive user base, which I think is really good for us as users because it gives Adobe confidence that people are going to be around and they can continue investing in it. I wouldn't have said that a few years ago, despite the fact that there were still millions of users of Adobe Lightroom a number of years ago, but I really felt like they were stagnant for a while in terms of editing. That's definitely changed some of the tools, and I'm going to talk about some of those tools in this video. Some of the tools are just fantastic, and I love them. Now, having said that, I still have other products that I use and love, like Luminar and On1. Adore those products. I'll keep making videos about them because they are some of my favorite products. I'm also going to be including videos about Lightroom. In fact, I recently polled the folks on my email newsletter, and there was a lot of feedback about different topics in Lightroom that I could cover. If you would like to contribute as well, it's completely anonymous. I'm not collecting email addresses. There's a link to that poll or survey down below, and feel free to check that out if you'd like to. But again, powerful organization. It's got a great print module. There's a lot of things that you can do, and none of this is news to anybody, but I really, for the first time in probably 4 years, feel organized. And if you knew me personally and you know how kind of OCD I operate, I like things, what's the phrase? A place for everything and everything in its place. That's me. I very much am like that. And the last few years, I've been scatterbrained. I've been all over the place in terms of where my photos have been stored. And it's kind of driven me nuts. And then people ask me questions and I'm like, well, I mean, here's what I'm doing and I don't recommend it because I don't. But I do recommend getting it organized, getting it in one place. And for me, that place is Lightroom. And it's just working really well. So I've got a number of folders here on my desktop on the left-hand side. And then I've got my 18 terabyte drive, external drive connected. You can see I've got 282,000 photos in this photos folder. And then I organize by location or perhaps part of the world. So like Austin. I live in Austin, so in the drop down under Austin, you can see I've got lots of different folders from different photo walks around downtown Austin, and I name those usually by date and location. So Europe is a good example. I've got 105,000 photos that I've taken in my travels to Europe, and what I do is I name it by country or city and the date. And this is how I like to stay organized. I'm by no means telling you that that's how you should organize. I like to organize by location and then date. A lot of people just like to do it by year and then location, for example. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as it works for you. I'm a fan of just doing whatever makes sense to you. This makes sense to me. And for the first time in, like I said, about 4 years, I've got it all in one place. I feel pretty organized. I'm very happy about that. Now, the second reason that I'm back in Lightroom is an expression that goes like this. Data has gravity. And so that's a term used to describe the fact that larger data sets tend to attract smaller data sets. If you have a database in some company and you have a lot of data in it, and then you have a smaller data source somewhere else, you're not going to take this large database and move it over to where the smaller one is. It's going to go the other way. The smaller ones are going to be attracted in, or the large ones are going to attract the smaller ones. But what they also attract are related services and software. And so you end up building this ecosystem, which is incredibly important for us as photographers, I think. You end up building this ecosystem around Lightroom because data has gravity. And this applies to me kind of in 2 ways. Personally, which is I already had a lot of my photos in different folders here in Lightroom that I had imported over the years. And the amount of data that wasn't in Lightroom was much, much smaller than what was already in Lightroom. So it's kind of an easy decision to just say, you know what, I'm just going to stick everything in Lightroom because most of my images are already there. It just made sense. Not to mention the fact that I like Lightroom, but it just made sense from a logical point of view. But also kind of publicly or globally even about the fact that data has gravity. There's so many people with so many images in Lightroom. It just makes sense. As an instructor, I'm familiar with it so that I can, even if I don't instruct, I can speak that common language. But also I think it ensures further development as a user, that we're going to get further development in the product simply because so many people use it, so many people depend on it, and so you can feel comfortable that it's anchored, for lack of a better word. It's not going to possibly go away or something like that. I feel very confident that it's going to be here for a really long time. So that's the gravity that I'm talking about. It's solid and it attracts things to it. Now that leads me into point number 3, which is kind of a sub-point of attracting services and related software to those data sets that I talked about, the fact that data has gravity, and that is plugins always work. I can't think of any company that would make some kind of photo editing software that would say, no, we're not going to allow it to work as a plugin to Lightroom. That doesn't make any sense. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, Lightroom is so prevalent. It's industry standard. It has gravity. People are going to make products that work. And all the products that I use, they work as plugins to Lightroom. So gravity keeps it stable, for lack of a better term. It's a great way to kind of simplify your workflow where you can start here, do your basic edits here in Lightroom, go to another app, do whatever you want to do there, take advantage of the power of that app, and then come back and do touch up or whatever it might be here. And then not to mention, based on the catalog functionality, you got a great print module, for example. So doing those round trips, it keeps you organized, keeps everything in one place, which is really nice for someone that's kind of OCD, as I said earlier. So I think that's an important point as well. And so the fourth reason is masking. And I talked about this in that previous Lightroom video, but the masking in Lightroom is just so good and it's so powerful. Now, I've got a photo here. I've already cropped it and I did some basic stuff in the basic kind of develop section. And all I did is kind of brighten it a little bit. But this is where masking comes in, and there's so many powerful tools. I'm going to start with a linear gradient. And what I want to do is just come in here, and maybe what I want to do is just smooth out that foreground a little bit, maybe give it a tiny bit of warmth, a little bit of tint, maybe a little bit of saturation, maybe make it a little bit brighter. You can really quickly just add these masks, and they're accurate too. I'm going to come in and select the sky and drop a mask on top of that sky. And what I want to do is just slightly brighten that as well. And so maybe a little bit like that. Maybe drop some contrast to make it a little bit hazier. Maybe a tiny bit of warmth and a tiny bit of tint just to make it kind of match what I did in the foreground. And then maybe I want to smooth it out a little bit as well with a little bit less texture and less clarity. And actually I think I'm going to add back a little contrast so it's not too soft. But I mean, these masks are powerful and quick, and there's a lot of different masking types. And I'm going to be covering these in a number of my forthcoming videos, but luminance range or luminosity masks are incredibly powerful. And you have all this capability here where you can quickly and easily isolate the different components and just really dial in what you're trying to do. And I'm kind of playing around here to kind of isolate some of these highlights and fade that effect a little bit. So I think something about like that, and that's just a luminosity mask, and I can just play a little bit with the exposure here just to give me a tiny bit more contrast. Speaking of which, I can maybe add a little bit of contrast. Maybe I can pull those shadows down a little bit. The point is you can isolate specific areas pretty quickly. And there's another one, a color range mask, which gives you incredible power over color. So I might come into this one. Let's say I get that blue. And what I want to do is just drop that exposure of the blue a little bit. So it's just a great and powerful way to come in and target different aspects of the photo so that you can come in and make the adjustments that you need to make to really control the image. I actually think I'm going to lift those shadows a little bit more. And in fact, the nice thing is you can go back and edit these masks. So I can go back to this one and I can move it around again if I want to. Maybe I didn't quite get it high enough. Maybe I need to tilt it just a little bit to make it a little bit flatter. And maybe I want to lift that exposure a little bit because of the adjustments I made in the color range mask. The point is, lots of powerful masks, lots of control over different aspects of the photo, and all fully editable, which is really nice as well. And of course, for me, if you've been here before, you know I like my colors. And so reason number 5 is all the different color tools that are now in Lightroom. In the past, it was pretty simple, but now there's Color Mixer, which is expanded because it used to just be the Mixer, which is the HSL, which is common and pretty normal in really any photo editing app. but now there's point color, which allows you to come in and take these colors and just identify them immediately. And then you can come in and say, gosh, you know what I want is a little bit more saturation there, but maybe I want it to be a little bit darker. And then you can come in and do that again. And maybe you want to grab some of these pinks and do the same thing. I want these to be a little bit more saturated, but maybe I want them a little bit brighter. And so you have a lot of capability and flexibility to come in and impact color powerfully and accurately that you didn't really have before. But Color Mixer is not the only one. Color grading is fantastic. You have midtones, shadows, and highlights. And so you can go in and isolate each of those different tonal areas and pick a color and apply a different level of saturation, vibrance to them. Not to mention, you can come in and just do that globally across the entire photo. If you just want to add an entire bit of, let's say, warmth to the photo, you can come in and apply that across this image globally. So lots of power and lots of control. And that's one of the things I love about it. And there's another color tool that I really like, which is calibration. And I've talked about that in previous videos, but I'll come back and do some more. But these red, green, and blue primary, that corresponds with RGB, that, you know, the RGB values exist in every pixel. And so these are essentially allowing you to come in and make these micro adjustments that can have a huge impact on your color. You can play around with the hues and that sort of thing and get a really vibrant and beautiful, colorful image, just some minor adjustments. And what happens is you stack calibration, color grading, color mixer with point color, and then any masks and things like that, and you end up having massive, massive control over light and color pretty quickly and pretty easily in your image. And so you can take a photo that's fairly flat, turn it into something that's a bit more vibrant and colorful. And those are the 5 reasons why I'm finding so much fun using Lightroom again, and why I've moved all my 282,000 photos into Lightroom again so that I can use it as my catalog, because it's going to have all the things that I need. Plus, I have the ability to go to the other apps that I depend on in my workflow to get other things done. And it round trips beautifully and it works. And I've got everything captured in one place with my final result. Very happy about that. So that's kind of my journey away from Lightroom and back to it, and why and how and why I'm using the catalog. So if you want to check out that survey, let me know what kind of videos you want about Lightroom. I'll be back soon with more of them. Thanks for watching, my friends. You guys take care, and until the next video, adios.